Okay, Sadie, we're live. So, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sadie Fulton, and I'm the chair of the Green Party of Yolo County. And, an active in many different facets, which I'm sure we'll be discussing. Um, Also, kind of an internationalist.
Okay, excellent. So, you're the campaign manager for Josh Jones for governor. Can
Yes, I
you
am.
go ahead and tell us how you got involved with that?
Sure. So I've known Josh for about a year and a half. We met through the Bernie campaign, where he was leading and taking on a convener for our congressional district. And I was always very impressed with what he was doing. Coming in from, I had just moved here from the UK, where I had worked as a trade union organizer. So he and I worked together on a couple of projects. He helped launch the Green Party of Yolo County, and then he jumped ship and went back in to organize with the Democrats. And if you want more information about that, watch his interview from last week. But I stayed with the Greens. He and I was disappointed when he left, but we stayed in touch. We hung out. It was fine. Every now and then he'd pop into the Green meetings, and we always had a very good kind of working relationship. And so one day he came to our council meeting, just as he's friends with all of us, and he dropped in, and we were having a really good time, and it was at a time that he was feeling pretty disenfranchised from activities in the Democrats, and I'm on the phone trying to get hold of someone to run for governor. I always felt like, in particular, is a critical moment for us to have a solid Green, because there's like 12 Democratic candidates, 8 Republican candidates. It's not obvious who the top 2 would be, and it's the time when everything is changing. We're just coming out of the 2016 general election, which just shook up everything. The Green Party is surging, really solid, in my estimation, left-wing Democratic candidate for governor, and so there's a window there. And calling people, just desperately trying to get hold of someone to run for governor, and Josh was sitting next to me, and the next day we were chatting, and he says, "Oh, I think I'm going to leave the Democratic Party and governor." And I said, "Yes, please do." And if you do, I'll be your campaign manager. And so it evolved from there, and we just decided to get right in and work on it, and because it feels like it needs to happen. It's the right time, and we just, with the planet on a collision course, so to speak, and tanked, it's just, we don't have time to wait around and fuss about incrementalism, because incrementalism got us here, and this is not
Sure,
a good place to be in.
absolutely. Um, so what's your plan? Are you guys planning on doing a lot of door knocking, social media? What's your strategy for Josh Jones's campaign?
Okay, so we're gonna try and hit every single one of the 58 counties in California. Um, at a county leader for the campaign in each one, and if you're interested in volunteering for that, give me a contact on Facebook or through the website joshforgov.org. Basically, it's to talk to people, it's to listen to people, see where people are at. For instance, rural counties, which have traditionally been left to, like, that's kind of right-wing land, but those places went very strongly for Bernie Sanders, and there's a thirst out there for something better. Similarly, in the poorer areas near the cities, widespread gentrification. There's people being kicked out of their houses. There's you know, jobs going, and it's just a mess. And so the hunger there as well. The status quo is not working for anybody anymore. So with that in mind, we want to talk to these people and listen to people, and just, it's mostly about getting on the road. You know, last weekend we went to the it's called LACLA, the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, did a conference, a binational conference, where we heard testimony from workers in terrible conditions. For instance, I want to lift up the Driscoll boycott, because the berry producer Driscolls have been forcing their workers in San Quintin to work for 13 hours for $7 a day. And these people come home from work in pesticides that if they miss a shower or don't do their laundry immediately, they risk giving their children leukemia. So these are the kind of stories that we're hearing. This is the situation that, I mean, granted that's in Mexico, but it affects us. We're getting out there and engaging with people, and just kind of, it's going to be a really grassroots, pro-human, anti-corporation campaign. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So, you know, what you just mentioned is that if they don't shower immediately and wash their clothes, they risk giving their kids leukemia. I bet even if they do take a shower immediately and wash their clothes, they still risk giving their children leukemia. So it's kind of absurd to even work under those conditions.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, make sure you're boycotting Driscolls, because very simple thing we can all do.
Yeah. So let me just ask you, you did mention it once, but go ahead and give the website, state the website for Josh Jones's campaign, and how people can either contribute financially or become a volunteer.
Yes. So the website is Josh, Josh, for the number, gov.org. And I mean, there's a few ways that we need help. Financial contributions are always helpful. Mostly these days, all the donations we get go to rental cars to get us across the country, because Josh nor I have a car at this point. Town, we're environmentalists, and I'm in favor of public transport, but if you want to get up to rural voters, etc., you can't really depend on it. We need county leaders. We want to get people out so that they're organizing directly and talking to each other and making sure that we have county leader. That would just be things like getting an event, or helping us get signatures to get Josh on the ballot. 21, I think, is the number, signatures per county. Of course, we're not going to get that from Alpine County, which has only 1,000. We're more likely to get double that in Los Angeles. So it's not quite, you know, exactly 120, but that's the initial target.
So what's the total number of signatures you need to get them on the ballot?
7,000. And we have until March to get that. And start collecting signatures next week.
Gotcha. Can you repeat that number one more time? I don't know if it came through.
7,000.
7,000 to get him on the ballot. Okay, excellent. And I hope our Green Party counties help out. I think this is an important election because with Josh Jones as governor, and there is somebody challenging Anthony Randone, there would be a pathway to get SB 562 universal health care passed in California if we could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be incredible.
And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm a huge, huge fan of the kind of Medicare for all model. I used to live in the UK, And over there's the National Health Service. And if you say that you don't want there to be a National Health Service, you immediately become unelectable. Because it's that popular, people depend on it, and it's just understood. It was brought about in the 1940s, just after the end, when London was a shell of a city, and they just went, okay, well, we need healthcare, so we're going to get healthcare. Nowadays, people think they can run around, by people, I mean politicians, run around and say, oh, well, we can't afford SB 562. London could afford it in the 1940s. The problem is that there's no political will. You got to have political will. And right now there's massive political will amongst the people. And that's not trickling up because the people in power don't represent the rest of us. I think it's time. And we got to make that happen.
I believe that. That's definitely, I think, one of the, I think it should be the key issue for 2018 and 2020. Personally, I think it should be a litmus test. Okay, so, hey, let's talk about what you're doing currently with the Green Party in California. What are you doing to help build the Green Party? I know you're very instrumental with the Green Party in California. Can you give us an update?
Sure. So I'm on the state coordinating committee, and it's mostly internal, the work that goes on there at this point. It's things like figuring out how we're gonna outreach, how we're gonna structure things in order to promote effective organizing. That with the way things are shifting and changing and people being pushed out of the Democratic Party left, right, and center, that the Green Party is the obvious home for those people. I was a basically Democratic Party fugitive last year. Then our candidate was this year, and there's more and more and more of that. We're trying to now get the Green Party ready, because I think there's going to be just waves of people coming into the Green Party, because now the Democratic Party is showing its true colors. So, I mean, there's IT work going on. My favorite things, it's called GROW. It's a grassroots organizing working group. And we at Josh's campaign are working with that group, because one of the things that we want to do is set up county councils for the Green Party in those counties that don't currently have one. We have, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think it's 36 active counties that aren't. And those 22 are mostly rural, like we discussed before. So we're going to get out there and get the Green Party live there, so that anyone anywhere across California, when they want to get involved with the Green Party, they have somewhere to go.
Sure, absolutely. And you would think in rural counties where people are probably living with a little more elbow room would respect the land more and be more inclined to accept our values in the Green Party.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Two kind of things to back that up. One, we were up in Trinity County between an event in Humboldt with Jill Stein, and then we went up to Siskiyou County to visit our CD1 congressional candidate, Louis Elbinger. And on the way, we stopped off in Trinity. I mean, this place, okay, first of all, it's, lush and beautiful and just up there. But also, it's traditionally a red county, kind of ignored. There's a church right there on the street, big sign on it saying matter, pro-sanctuary, pro-ordinary people, anti-big money. I swear, it was, I took a picture of it. It was just incredible to see that. And we ducked into a health food store there, and those people said, oh yeah, this area is full of greens all over the place. But then picked up a newspaper and the back page is a full spread article for a Republican candidate for governor. An advertisement, I should say, not article. The Republicans take that area for granted. The Democrats ignore it. It's so not a traditionally Republican place. It feels very open-hearted, open-minded. What Lewis Elbinger, is that there's a bit of a traditionally up in that, I won't use his exact language on it, but there's a kind of in-group, out-group thing. People's community loyalty is expressed as mistrust or distrust of the Democratic Party, which is totally understandable, actually, because they're not trustworthy. More likely to switch Republican voters there to Green than it is to switch them to Democrat, just because of the patience of the different parties. We're starting relatively fresh.
Right. So it sounds like there's a lot of potential. It might even be low-hanging fruit for us. It sounds like we just got to get there and maybe lend our hand to them.
Absolutely. I think that all we have to do right now is show up, and there's a hunger for what we bring, and so we just have to be there. It's Excellent. Not that difficult.
That's great. Hey, tell us a little bit about your international activism. You come from Britain, and sounds like you were politically active there.
Yes, I actually found my political calling when I was a student at University Belfast in Northern Ireland, and it was such a wonderful place to start being an activist, because obviously they have a very unusual history. But there's a need for class politics there. And by class politics, I mean basically the politics of the 99%, the understanding what hurts the poor helps the rich, and they break the poor into small fractions, and so that way the poor doesn't unite and stand up to the rich effectively. I mean, that's pretty simplistic language I just used, but that's the general idea of it. Over there, what you would get is a kind of carve-up that was extremely lazy, where you had one political party that declares itself the party of the Protestant people, effectively, and then another party that considers itself the party of the Catholic people, and then each of them at election season would say, hey, you have to vote for me or the other guy will get in. None of them ever did anything for their communities. You know, there was fuel poverty, which means that people couldn't afford to heat their homes. One guy, an old pensioner, using his oven because he couldn't afford gas heating. The oven sprung a leak, and it leaked gas into his house, and he died. And this was the sort of thing that was going on. Meanwhile, everyone was just being told, don't worry about any of that. You have to vote for me because otherwise someone who wants to kill you will get in. And so I got involved with an organization called People Before Profit. At the time, they were very new, very kind of fresh. We didn't have any elected seats, etc. We then got 2 people elected to the assembly in Northern Ireland, and a couple of councillors. And they're growing, and they've had a whole bunch of electoral success in the Republic of Ireland as well. So it was really inspiring to be able to do that. We actually canvassed both sides of a wall, literal physical wall that stretched up about 6-7 stories, tall enough that you couldn't throw a rock over it. And we went to both sides of it and knocked on doors on both sides, which, to the best of my knowledge, been done since before the Troubles, before the war out there. It was inspiring and exciting to be a part of that. I then got involved with unionizing a call center that I worked at, which was full of international migrant workers who would be on 2 different language lines. That was what the call center specialized in. And they would have us, I was one of the workers in there because I speak French. They would have us answering in both lines, but then also they brought in a bunch of translation work and told us that we had to do the translation work. In fact, the translators are usually paid a lot more money than call center workers. So they insisted we do translation work for the cost of call center work. And things like that, that people were really angry. And so we got the union in and started raising hell. And I became a union representative, knocking back just ridiculous, silly little infractions where the employer would try and save a little bit of money here and there by the worker. And then, of course, they tried to fire me and made up some nonsense. And the union came in right behind me and out of the park. So I'm a big fan of trade unions. I worked after that in England, in Cambridge, for public service union, and we were basically, our role was to try and defend the National Health Service. We did other things too, but the public sector in the UK is under attack right now, not unlike other places that we might know of.
Right.
Where there's kind of inspiration being drawn from American CEOs to British CEOs about how they can, what was used to mess with people here, to mess with people over there. So this is where I believe the movement has to be international, because the movement against us sure is.
Right. And what do you think about the state of unions in the United States? I kind of feel that they've been decimated and have less and less power all the time.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I haven't been as involved in trade union politics since I got here, but I have to say, I took a job in a pizza place, and that was a purely strategic thing because it was flexible hours, and I could just do that and get kind of a trickle of money in and then do my activism any way I wanted to. Because before that, I had never been a staff of anything anywhere and not been a union member. I tried. I called union after union. They bounced me around. I finally got through to one union, and they said, "Oh, well, you know what? We don't really want to have an organizing campaign there right now. We don't have the resources for it." And I said, "Well, okay, but protected. Can't I still get some sort of a thing where if I pay you membership, then if they try and fire me, then you'll show up and help me, right?" They said, "No, you can't."
Wow.
They wouldn't let me join. I tried to join. They wouldn't let me join. And I ended up working at that place, much to my shame, without being a member of a trade union.
Gotcha.
And I mean, it was just not something I ever thought would happen after having been through what I've been through and had a union really defend me when I worked in a call center, which also didn't recognize unions, that this other place, they just wouldn't have me. And it kind of speaks to the mentality, I think. Trade unions here are really just holding their ground. There are places that are unionized and there are places that are not. And with the exception of wonderful campaigns like Our Walmart, that desperately need to happen, it's mostly just, well, these places are unionized, let's look after them. There's no acknowledgement of the fact that whatever they do to ununionized workers, they can do to unionized workers. If you don't like it, then we'll fire you, and you can then go and work for an ununionized place. It's not an isolated thing, but it gets treated like that. So very concerning. I'm now working a temporary job at UC Davis. Just like it's a little. This is the reality of running a campaign as a Green Party person. Okay, we don't have any corporate money. So I took a job in order to get a cash infusion for myself, the majority of which I'm now donating to the campaign, and that's covering the start until we get to the point where we've got enough traction that we can fundraise properly. Whereas I think most campaigns start with a corporate cash infusion, right?
Right.
So we're not doing any of that.
Right.
But to circle back, the only reason I brought up the job at UC Davis is because it is a unionized job, and man, you can tell the difference
Wow.
because it's an hour I make 22.
Excellent. Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so hey, let's talk about this. Roseanne DeMoro is the leader of the nurses union,
Mm-hmm.
a strong female figure leader. Nina Turner is the leader of Our Revolution, and of course, Jill Stein is the leader of our Green Party. Women's role in leadership today, I think, is very key.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? And even with the backdrop of, you know, the misogyny that comes out of the Donald Trump presidency and his campaign?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's, I mean, where do you even start with something like that? It's really encouraging how women are starting to step forward. I mentioned Donald Trump being such a misogynist. I don't think that this 2016 election was particularly good for women because, on the one hand, you were told, well, you have to vote for Hillary Clinton or else you're a terrible feminist and you're not even a feminist at all. And Gloria Steinem came out and said, if you support Bernie Sanders as a woman, that's probably just because that's where the boys are, which is an incredibly sexist from a woman and a woman of her history and her stature. So, I mean, I was personally infuriated by that. But there are, at the same time, exciting developments. You know, Jill is a personal role model to me, as I'm sure many people can relate to. She's What I really like about her is that she's very powerful, but she's not powerful in a masculine way. I think that now there's no, it's not a binary thing. It's not like all men who are powerful are masculine and all women who are powerful are feminine. And, everyone needs to just figure out what their own style is and step into that. But there's been stories of testosterone in order to manage to survive in politics. And I mean, that's ridiculous that anyone would feel that they have to do that. Bill has this very feminine leadership style where she's graceful. It's very refreshing to have people like her on the scene. It kind of makes space for other women activists like me. A whole bunch of young women activists I can think of in the Green Party, where we can be more authentic in our power. Because inauthentic power is just power for power's sake. Authentic power is a sort of a byproduct of speaking from the heart, telling the situation like it is for the kind of fallen voices, and saying, look, this has to stop. Enough is enough. One of the reasons that I'm such an activist is because I want to be a mom at some point and is dying. So we've got a situation where what the planet will look like in 20, 30 years. If I brought a child into the world right now, either that child would live to be like 200 with new technology, or possibly they'd die in some kind of a horrific incident. And so that's a huge thing. That's kind of my most basic feminine instincts that are propelling me to action. Because I look at this world and it's just wrong. And good thing that there is space for women activists to come forward. There are advancements that need to be made. I remember watching a speech at the democracy convention that really stuck with me, where women on average need to be asked to run for office 7 times. Often don't have to be asked by anybody. Often, you know, everyone, obviously some people need to be encouraged, but we're less likely to put ourselves forward. And so now women are starting to step forward and starting to put ourselves forward, and I think that's a really heartening change.
Yes, absolutely it is. That's interesting, the perspective you had on Jill Stein and her feminist or feminine method or style. I always felt like Jill Stein was such a good debater that, you know, she doesn't see, like you said, she doesn't seem very assuming, but whenever asked a question, even gotcha questions, she handled them so well and usually stunned the people that she was talking to. I'm a big fan of Jill Stein, you know.
Yeah, I have to say, I had a conversation with her about 8 months ago. We got to host her here in Davis, and I want to tell this little story because there was a fellow in the audience who decided he was going to like pull a gotcha question. It's the same question she's heard a million times over. He asked her about vaccines, right? So she says, well, you know, I was opposed to mercury in vaccines, and they took the mercury out of vaccines. And it wasn't that interesting. But then at the end, he came up to her, and she said, "Listen, it's not your fault. You've been sold by the media. You're a victim. You are not a perpetrator." And he was stunned. And then I watched while she gave him like a 2-minute long crash course in manufactured consent. And it was so beautiful. But then at the end of it, he pulls out a Trump hat. So it tells you his background. He tries to get Jill to wear it. And so she's like, "No, I'm not wearing that." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he starts to put it away. And she says, "You can wear it." Take a picture together. And it was the most impressive U-turn I've ever seen, because he obviously came there trying to cause trouble, and she completely disarmed him.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I asked her later, you know, "Jill, you get a lot of heat. I mean, anyone who looks at the kind of comments she gets on Twitter and stuff, it's some terrible stuff on there. How do you manage that?" Because she doesn't have the kind of hard shell around her that a lot of politicians have, where they just stop caring because they've taken heat, and so that's how they protect themselves. She doesn't do that. She just goes on, right on caring. I've been told as an activist that I should, and I don't want to do that, because if I have a thick skin, why am I here? So I said, "How do you do that?" And she said, basically, we are a voice for the voiceless. It's not us that they're attacking. When they attack us, they're actually attacking the voiceless people who we represent.
Wow.
And yeah, and so self, in the same way that you would defend them, but remember as well who is actually behind this. You know, like the case of the guy with the Trump hat.
Right.
He's just repeating what's been told to him.
He's a victim. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
So you talked about women not being very inclined to step up into leadership roles. Are you looking to step up into a leadership role in the near future?
Yeah. Yes. When you mentioned, or we were talking about, you know, women in leadership, and I said women need to be asked 7 times to run. So I am actually going to be running for Congress. I have noticed that as Josh's campaign manager, I'm getting a lot more being able to have opportunities like this interview, to be able to lift up our voices. And our congressperson, to the best of my knowledge, as of imminently, you know, before I announced 10 minutes ago, he was running unopposed. which is just silly. So yeah, I'm going to put my name forward for that.
Excellent. So this is breaking news.
Yes, it is.
Yes, and I think you're a great candidate for it. You have a lot of experience internationally. Yeah, I think that's great news, and I hope you get that going soon. And we'll come back when you want to talk about your platform for you, because this interview was kind of as a campaign manager for Josh Jones, but we'll have you back as your own your own campaign as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I figure
absolutely.
I could try doing both because as of January, I'll be working full time as Josh's campaign manager. And most of our congressional candidates are doing it on top of holding down jobs. And so I'm going to do the same. And, I can tack them together, and it'll be a little unconventional because I'll be campaigning for Congressional District 3 from Los Angeles and San Diego. Which are
Right.
totally not anywhere near our constituency. But it should be a good ride, and we should be able to signal boost
Yes.
a good, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, we need more green candidates. We need to challenge the incumbents, and we need more strong women leaders. I think that's incredible news. I thank you
Thank
for
you.
running too. Um,
Thank you very much.
hey, so one more thing, you said that there might be something you're working on with Jill Stein. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So when I mentioned that I was talking to her before, I didn't mention that we actually, I feel very lucky because she made a huge impression on me, and I guess I made somewhat of an impression on her as well, because later, I was getting off work at the pizza place, my phone rings, and it's Jill. And she wanted to set up a project. That project, we can't reveal an enormous amount about it yet, but what I can tell you is that going to be lifting up green activism and green candidacies and green organizing to a new level. We're taking it higher and higher. And there's a lot of scope in this for growth and development and outreach, and it's exactly the sort of thing that I always wanted to do when I was a union organizer, empowering activists. Yeah, so watch that space, which it's an exciting project on the way, and it will probably be ready to go in a month or so.
Awesome. That sounds like really good news. We need a good boost to the Green Party. It's a good time in the political discourse where people are tired of the corporate parties. Boy, I'm looking forward to that and looking to learn more. It's another reason to have you back. Excellent. Okay, Sadie. So let me just ask you one more time to give us Josh Jones's website so that people can
Yep.
contribute and maybe donate their time as well.
Absolutely. So the website is josh4gov.org. That's JOSH, the number 4, gov, GOV.org. And I want to say something as well. Josh's campaign is out because I've done the calculations. We actually have a window that we could get him elected. And I'll tell you exactly how that would work. 1, Bernie Sanders got 4 million votes presidential primary here. The second running governor candidate got 800,000 in 2004. That means that in order to get into the top 2, we only need 43% of people who voted for Bernie Sanders. That's possible. Further, if we get him into the top 2, we then have no more arguments about spoiler effect. We have no more, you have to vote for this person to keep that person out. Clear shot. And it will also break the media blackout on green candidates, because if you're in the top 2, they have to talk about you. It would be so historic that they would want to talk about you, I would think. And I think at that point we could get Josh elected. We need to get 43% of Bernie's voters to vote for Josh to get us over that hurdle. And I think we can do that. I think that genuine pro-environment, pro-planet people are tired of voting for status quo politics at the very, core level. They want to hope for something better, and the moment has come that they can, and this is an avenue that will allow for that. So if you want to see that happen, I'm sure we all do, we need help on the streets, we need help organizing events, we need help just talking to people, setting up tables at farmers markets, getting leaflets out, getting flyers out. I'm available to talk to anyone who wants to get active on Josh's campaign in their community. And I'm hoping that we'll have such a flood that eventually I won't be able to talk to everyone, and that we'll be able to link people. Talk to everyone. I do want to talk to everyone, but it's just feel that we will be able to get a big movement of people and get out there, and then we can have events in every county and we can roll it out, and it'll be a game changer. I feel like we can really make this a game changer with the momentum that we can harness. Incidentally, Jill got 4 times as many votes in California than there are registered Greens.
Wow.
So yeah, so that tells you that we're surging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It seems like everybody I talk to who's, I guess a progressive or on the left, that are activists, they all seem to tell me that they voted for Jill regardless of their political affiliation. Of course, there's the progressive Democrats that, stay to the Democratic Party, but I've talked to so many people that told me they voted for Jill, their NPP or other parties. Anyway, Sadie, I want to thank you again. Thanks for doing this interview. I'm glad you're running. I'm glad you broke the news here as well.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Awesome. And good luck to you. Take care.